Hi, my name is Ryan Griffin and we're here at Inspire Strength and Fitness, and we're going to be going over a hip mobility drill today called the half kneeling hip flexor stretch. If you sit a lot, or if the front of your hips are tight and you're stuck into a little bit of an anterior tilt with your pelvis, we're going to be stretching out those front hip flexors, turning on the glutes a little bit and pulling you out of that anterior tilt or out of that extended posture. So for our half kneeling hip flexor stretch, I'm going to have Chris take a knee, get into our half kneeling posture. With this stretch, a few places where I see people go wrong is they start off with, they're a little bit too close to the wall and it doesn't give their hips enough space to actually get a good stretch. They start out too tight. So Chris, we could just demonstrate what that looks like. If you could grab your back foot. So he's in really close to the wall, his knee's already hitting the wall and it doesn't give him any mobility to really get a stretch and bring that left hip forward. So the other place where people go wrong on this is if you're really tight in your hip, it's going to make you want to pull that hip out and externally rotate a little bit. So we're going to pull that hip in, turn our belly button forward, and give our hips some internal rotation, just so we really focus on our posture and our alignment before we start stretching. So Chris, I'm just going to have you back up that pad. So we space our hips out a little bit. And with your down leg, we're going to take that leg a little bit outside the hips, just to space out those hips out once again, so they're not playing on each other as we try and go into our stretch. So Chris is going to grab his heel, bring it right up to his glute. He's going to be nice and tall through his posture and his spine, and then he's going to turn that belly button forward, and that creates that internal rotation on that hip. So we're stretching out the front of our hip flexor, we're not letting that hip turn out. Now, as Chris squeezes his back glute, he's going to get a little bit of a stretch on the front of that hip, and as he comes forward, we want to make sure that we get hip extension. We want to make sure we don't arch our lower back and get lumbar extension. So we want the range of motion to be coming from our hip, not putting the stress into our spine. So you can come forward and you can use this as a hold to get really familiar with the stretch, how to stretch out the front of your hip, and also how to really get a good contraction on that glute. The glute is really going to help us to open up the front of that hip. So starting out, you can use this as a hold, or you can come in, hold for 1, 2, and come back as part of your warm-up. This is the half kneeling hip flexor stretch.